Victoria Hale sat across from a man who didn't flinch when she said the words that made every other date vanish. I have 2 kids. Adrian Cole just leaned forward, asked what their names were, and for the first time in years she felt the ground shift beneath her carefully constructed world. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not to her, not with him, not like this. If you want to see how a single coffee in Denver turned into something neither of them planned, stay with me until the end. Hit the like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. The cafe smelled like burnt espresso and old wood, the kind of place that pretended to be cozy but mostly just needed better lighting. Victoria Hale walked in 3 minutes late, which never happened, and immediately regretted the whole thing. She'd only agreed to this date because her assistant had worn her down over the course of 2 weeks. You need to meet someone normal, Emma had said, like normal was a vitamin Victoria was deficient in. Someone who doesn't know who you are. Victoria doubted that was possible. Everyone in Denver knew who she was. Hale Industries didn't exactly operate in the shadows. But here she was anyway, scanning the room for a man she'd only seen in one carefully chosen photo. Dark hair, decent smile, nothing that screamed disaster. She spotted him in the corner booth, and her first thought was that he looked tired. Not sloppy, just worn in, like a jacket someone had owned for years. Adrian Cole stood when he saw her. That surprised her. Most men her age had abandoned that gesture somewhere around 2015. Victoria? He asked. That's me. Adrian. He offered his hand instead of going for a hug, which she appreciated. His grip was firm, but not aggressive, the handshake of someone who'd worked with his hands before. They sat. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it wasn't smooth either. Victoria had been on enough first dates to know the rhythms, the performance of interest, the careful curation of details, the dance around anything that mattered. She was already exhausted, and they hadn't even ordered yet. So, Adrian said, how bad was traffic? She blinked. Fine, I don't live far. Lucky. I came from the north side, thought I was going to age out before I found parking. A small smile tugged at her mouth. Welcome to downtown. The waitress appeared, young, pierced, aggressively uninterested in their existence. They ordered coffee. Victoria asked for hers black. Adrian got something with oat milk that made him look vaguely embarrassed. My daughter got me into it, he said, like he owed her an explanation. Now regular milk tastes weird. Victoria's brain stuttered. You have a daughter? Yeah, Lily. She's 6. He said it the way someone mentioned owning a dog or playing guitar. Casual, like it wasn't information that usually cleared a room. Victoria had a very specific policy about single fathers. She didn't date them. Not because they were bad people, but because the math never worked. Single father plus single mother equaled logistical chaos, and she'd built her entire life around control. But Adrian wasn't asking her anything. He wasn't watching her face for a reaction. He was just stirring oat milk into his coffee like he'd already moved on. That's great, Victoria said, and meant it less than she wanted to. Is it? Adrian glanced up, one eyebrow raised. You look like I just told you I have a felony. She laughed before she could stop herself. No, most people don't lead with that. Why not? It's the most important thing about me. There was no defensiveness in his voice, no posturing, just fact. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest, small and uncomfortable. I have 2 kids, she said. The words came out fast, like ripping off a bandage. She watched his face, waiting for the shift, the slight lean back, the forced smile, the, oh wow, that's great. That actually meant check, please. Adrian just nodded. How old? 7 and 5. A boy and a girl. Good ages. Lily just hit the why phase. Everything's a question now. Wait until they start negotiating bedtime like corporate lawyers. He grinned. Looking forward to it. The conversation kept going, and Victoria realized with a strange jolt that she wasn't performing anymore. She was just talking. About Max's soccer obsession. About Sophie's insistence on wearing her tutu to the grocery store. About the time both of them got food poisoning on the same night, and she'd run between their rooms like a battlefield medic. Adrian listened the way most people didn't, leaning in, asking follow-up questions, laughing at the parts that were actually funny instead of politely chuckling at everything. What about Lily's mom? Victoria asked, and immediately regretted it. Too personal. Too soon. But Adrian didn't flinch. She left when Lily was 8 months old. Just gone one day. No note, no fight, nothing. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not. He said it without bitterness, which somehow made it worse. She didn't want to be a mom. Better she figured that out early than stuck around resenting us both. Victoria thought about her own ex-husband, the one who'd promised forever and delivered 18 months before deciding fatherhood wasn't aligned with his personal growth journey. She'd wanted to burn his self-help books. My ex couldn't handle the responsibility, she said. He called the kids emotionally draining. Jesus. Yeah, you're better off. I know. She did know. She'd known it the day she signed the divorce papers, but hearing someone else say it still felt like permission. The coffee went cold. They ordered more. An hour passed, then another. Victoria checked her phone twice, once out of habit, once because Emma had texted asking if she needed a fake emergency call. She didn't respond. Can I ask you something? Adrian said. Sure. Why'd you agree to this? The dating app thing, I mean. You don't seem like someone who needs help meeting people. Victoria considered lying. She was good at it, had built a career on knowing exactly what people wanted to hear. But something about Adrian made her want to tell the truth. I'm tired, she said, of people treating me like a resume. Everyone wants to know what I do, how much I make, what I can do for them. No one asks what I actually care about. What do you care about? My kids. And not screwing them up worse than I already am. Adrian smiled. Same. It should have been a nothing moment. Two single parents commiserating over lukewarm coffee. But Victoria felt it anyway. The pull. The stupid, inconvenient pull towards someone she barely knew. Do you want to get out of here? Adrian asked. Her heart kicked. And go where? I don't know. Walk? It's nice out. It wasn't really. Denver in March was unpredictable. Cold 1 hour, decent the next. But Victoria found herself nodding anyway. They paid, split the bill, which Adrian didn't argue about, and stepped outside. The air was sharp and clean, the kind that made you feel awake whether you wanted to or not. They walked without a destination, drifting through side streets Victoria barely recognized despite living here for a decade. Adrian talked about his job, construction management, nothing glamorous, but he liked it. Liked building things that lasted. Victoria talked about Hale Industries in the vaguest terms possible, and Adrian didn't press. Do you ever feel like you're failing? She asked, surprising herself. Every day? But you keep going. What else am I going to do? Lily needs me, so I show up. It was the simplest answer in the world, and it gutted her. They ended up at a park. Small, mostly empty, with a rusted swing set that looked like it hadn't been inspected since the 90s. Adrian sat on one of the swings, and after a moment, Victoria sat on the other. This is weird, right? She said. Little bit. I don't usually do this. Sit on swings? Any of it. She gestured vaguely at the space between them. This. Adrian looked at her, really looked, and Victoria felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with her clothes or her reputation. You want to stop? He asked. No. Good. Me neither. They stayed there until the sun started to set, talking about nothing and everything, about burnt dinners and school projects and the very specific hell of assembling IKEA furniture alone, about the moments that mattered and the ones that didn't. When Adrian finally checked his phone, he swore softly. I gotta go. Lily's babysitter has class tonight. Victoria stood. Yeah, I should get back too. They walked to the parking lot in silence, the comfortable kind. When they reached her car, a sleek black sedan that cost more than Adrian probably made in 6 months, he didn't comment on it. Can I see you again? He asked. Victoria should have said no, should have thanked him for a nice evening and gone back to her controlled, predictable life. But she didn't want to. Yes. When? I don't know. Soon? How about this weekend? We could bring the kids. Let them meet. Every rational part of Victoria's brain screamed at her to slow down. You didn't bring kids into things this early. You waited. You made sure. But she was tired of waiting, tired of making sure, tired of protecting herself from things that might actually be good. Okay, she said. Adrian smiled, broad and genuine and completely unguarded. Okay. He didn't try to kiss her, didn't ask for her number because they'd already exchanged it on the app. Just gave a small wave and walked to his truck, a battered Ford that had seen better decades. Victoria sat in her car for a long time after he left, staring at the steering wheel and trying to figure out what the hell she'd just done. Her phone buzzed. Emma. How'd it go? Victoria typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on different, good different, or bad different. I don't know yet. But that was a lie. She did know. She just wasn't ready to admit it. Ochang. Saturday came faster than Victoria expected. She spent most of Friday night spiraling, second-guessing the plan, imagining every way it could go wrong, rehearsing explanations for why this was a terrible idea. By Saturday morning, she was exhausted. Why are you nervous? Sophie asked, watching Victoria change shirts for the 3rd time. I'm not nervous. You're doing the thing with your hands. Victoria looked down. She was twisting her rings. She stopped. We're meeting some people today, she said carefully. A man I had coffee with, and his daughter. Max appeared in the doorway holding a soccer ball. Is this a date? Sort of. Are you getting married? Max, I had coffee with him once. Grandma says you're bad at dating. Victoria made a mental note to have words with her mother. Grandma says a lot of things. They met at a playground on the east side. Neutral territory, public, easy to bail from if things went south. Victoria arrived 5 minutes early and immediately regretted it. She felt like she was on display, standing there in jeans and a sweater that suddenly felt too nice, too try-hard. Then she saw Adrian's truck pull in, and her stomach dropped. He got out first, then opened the back door for a little girl with dark curls and bright pink sneakers. Lily. She looked exactly like the photo he'd shown Victoria. Big eyes, serious expression, clutching a stuffed rabbit like it was a life vest. Sophie grabbed Victoria's hand. Is that them? Yes. Be nice. I'm always nice. Max said nothing, just watched with the kind of suspicious intensity he usually reserved for new babysitters. Adrian spotted them and waved. Victoria waved back, feeling ridiculous. They met in the middle, the 5 of them standing in an awkward cluster near the slide. Hey, Adrian said. Hey. Lily stared at Victoria like she was a puzzle to solve. Are you the rich lady? Victoria's brain short-circuited. What? Dad said you have a big job. I have a job, yeah. Sophie leaned in, squinting at Lily. I like your rabbit. Lily held it up. His name is Carrot. That's a good name. I have a bear named Sprinkles. Why? Because he's covered in sparkles. Oh. Lily considered this. That makes sense. And just like that, they were off, running toward the swings, Carrot bouncing behind them. Max lingered, still watching Adrian with narrow eyes. You play soccer? Adrian asked. Max nodded. What position? Forward? Nice. I used to play in high school. I was terrible. The corner of Max's mouth twitched. Why? Too slow, and I kept forgetting which goal was which. That got a full smile. That's really bad. Yeah, it was. Max shifted his soccer ball. You want to kick it around? Sure. They walked off together, and Victoria stood there dumbstruck, watching her son, her cautious, serious son who took 3 months to warm up to anyone, laugh at something Adrian said. Sophie ran back over, breathless. Mom, Lily has a pet frog. That's great, honey. Can we get a frog? No. But no frogs. Sophie pouted and ran back to the swings. Adrian jogged over, grinning. Your son just schooled me. He's competitive. I noticed. He glanced at the kids. They're doing okay. Better than I expected. You expected a disaster? I expected, I don't know, awkwardness, tears, someone asking to go home. The day's still young. She laughed, and it felt good. Easy. They sat on a bench near the playground, close enough to supervise, but far enough to pretend they weren't hovering. This is weird, right? Victoria said. You said that last time. Because it keeps being true. Adrian stretched his legs out, watching Lily try to teach Sophie how to pump on the swing. I don't think it's weird. I think it's honest. Honest how? Most people wait months before bringing their kids into it. They pretend they're something they're not, then act surprised when it falls apart. He shrugged. We're skipping the bullshit. Victoria wanted to argue, but she couldn't. He was right. What if they hate each other? She asked. Then we deal with it. But look at them. She did. Lily and Sophie were laughing about something. Max was showing Adrian a move he'd learned at practice. No one looked miserable. Still, Victoria said, it's fast. Yeah. Adrian looked at her. Is that bad? I don't know. You want to slow down? She should say yes. She should pump the brakes, take a breath, think this through. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, no. Adrian's smile was slow and warm. Good. They stayed at the playground for 2 hours. The kids cycled through every piece of equipment, argued over who got to go down the slide first, and eventually ended up in a pile near the sandbox, digging for buried treasure that didn't exist. We should probably feed them, Adrian said. Pizza? Perfect. They ended up at a loud, chaotic place with arcade games and mediocre pizza that the kids inhaled like it was gourmet. Lily and Sophie bonded over their shared love of terrible pop music. Max challenged Adrian to air hockey and won, then demanded a rematch. Victoria sat back and watched, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Light. When they finally left, the sun was setting and all 3 kids were crashing hard. Lily fell asleep in Adrian's truck before they even left the parking lot. Sophie was half asleep on Victoria's shoulder. Same time next week? Adrian asked. Victoria hesitated, not because she didn't want to, because she did, and that terrified her. Yeah, she said. Next week. He reached out, squeezed her hand once, and let go. Victoria drove home with Sophie snoring in the back seat, and Max staring out the window, quiet. Did you have fun? She asked. Max shrugged. It was okay. Just okay. Adrian's cool, Lily's weird, but like, good weird. And Sophie? She won't shut up about the frog. Victoria smiled. That sounds about right. When they got home, she tucked both kids into bed, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat on the couch in the dark. Her phone buzzed. Lily's still talking about Sprinkles the bear. Victoria typed back, Sophie won't stop asking for a frog. We should get them together and let them negotiate. That's a terrible idea. Probably. Same time next Saturday? Victoria stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. This was a mistake. It was too fast, too much, too risky. She was a billionaire CEO with a carefully managed life. And Adrian was a construction manager with a beat-up truck and a 6-year-old who named her rabbit Carrot. It didn't make sense, but she typed anyway. Yes. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't regret it. 3 Saturdays turned into 6. 6 turned into something Victoria stopped counting. The routine settled in without anyone officially deciding on it. Weekends meant playgrounds, bad pizza, and the 4 of them navigating the chaos of 3 kids who decided they were friends now. Adrian's truck became a familiar sight in Victoria's driveway. Her kitchen became the place they all ended up, usually covered in flour or marker stains or whatever disaster the kids had engineered that afternoon. It felt normal, which was exactly what scared her. Victoria was standing at her kitchen island, watching Adrian attempt to flip a pancake, while Lily gave him detailed instructions from her perch on the counter. Sophie and Max were in the living room, arguing over which movie to watch. It was Sunday morning, which meant Adrian had stayed over. Again, not like that. He slept on the couch, always. Had his own blanket, his own pillow. The kids didn't ask questions because there was nothing to question, but Victoria was starting to wonder if the distance she'd insisted on was protecting anyone or just making things harder. You're burning it, Lily said, poking Adrian's arm. I'm not burning it. It's getting crispy. That's the same thing. It's not. The smoke alarm went off. Adrian swore under his breath, waving a towel at the ceiling while Victoria grabbed the smoking pan and dumped it in the sink. Crispy, she said. Shut up, Lily giggled, covering her mouth with both hands. You said a bad word. I said shut up. That's not bad. Mom says it's rude. Your mom's right. I'm sorry. Victoria bit back a smile, running water over the charred pancake. Why don't we just do cereal? Because I promised pancakes. You promised edible pancakes. Adrian pointed the spatula at her. One bad one doesn't count. There were 3 bad ones before this. Those were practice. Lily hopped down from the counter, tugging on Victoria's sleeve. Can you make them? Absolutely not. Your dad started this. He's finishing it. Adrian shot her a look that was half annoyed, half grateful. He knew what she was doing, letting him be the parent, not stepping in to fix everything just because she could. It had taken him a while to accept that. He was used to doing everything alone, to carrying the weight without asking for help. Victoria understood that more than he knew. She poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter, watching him wrestle with the batter like it had personally offended him. You stress cook, she said. I do not. You absolutely do. Every time you're worried about something, you start making food no one asked for. That's not... He stopped, frowning. Okay, maybe sometimes. What are you worried about? Nothing. Adrian, he flipped a pancake, this time successfully. Work stuff, it's fine. It wasn't fine. She could see it in the set of his shoulders, the way he'd been checking his phone more than usual. But she didn't push. They'd developed a rhythm for that too, knowing when to ask and when to let things breathe. The pancakes eventually turned out decent, and they ate at the table like a real family, which still felt surreal to Victoria. She kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Adrian to realize what he'd gotten himself into and back away, for her kids to decide this was too weird and ask her to stop, for her own brain to override her heart and put an end to this before it got messier. But none of that happened. After breakfast, Max dragged Adrian outside to practice penalty kicks. Sophie convinced Lily to play dress-up, which meant Victoria's bedroom was about to become a war zone of scarves and old jewelry. Victoria stayed in the kitchen, washing dishes and trying to ignore the tightness in her chest that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with hope. Her phone rang. Emma. Hey, Victoria said, tucking the phone between her shoulder and ear. Please tell me you're not working on a Sunday. I'm not working. You're lying. I'm doing dishes. There was a pause. That's worse. You never do dishes. You have people for that. Victoria didn't, actually. She'd let most of her household staff go after the divorce, not because she couldn't afford them, but because having strangers in her space all the time made her feel less alone in a way that was worse than actually being alone. What do you need, Em? Nothing. I'm checking in, making sure you're still alive. Still alive. And still seeing the construction guy. Victoria smiled despite herself. His name is Adrian. I know his name. I did a background check. You did what? Relax. Clean record. No debt. Pays his taxes on time. References say he's solid. Victoria closed her eyes. Emma. What? You're a billionaire dating someone you met on an app? I'm not letting you end up on a true crime podcast. We're not... Victoria stopped. Were they dating? They hadn't labeled it, hadn't had the conversation. They just existed together, showed up for each other, made pancakes and kicked soccer balls and navigated 3 kids like it was the most natural thing in the world. You're not what? Emma pressed. I don't know. You like him. That's not the point. That's exactly the point. You've been miserable for 2 years, and now you're not. Don't overthink it. I'm not overthinking. You're absolutely overthinking. Just enjoy it, okay? Victoria watched through the window as Adrian let Max score on him, then dramatically fell to the ground like he'd been shot. Max laughed, and the sound carried all the way into the kitchen. Okay, Victoria said quietly. After Emma hung up, Victoria stood there for a long time, coffee going cold in her hand. The day unraveled the way weekends did now, slowly, loudly, full of small moments that didn't matter to anyone but them. Sophie insisted on giving everyone makeovers. Lily painted Adrian's nails bright purple. Max taught them all a TikTok dance he'd learned at school, and they failed spectacularly. By the time the sun started setting, the kids were sprawled on the couch in a pile, half watching a movie none of them were really paying attention to. Adrian found Victoria in the kitchen, staring at her laptop without actually reading anything on the screen. You okay? He asked. Yeah, just thinking. He leaned against the counter next to her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. About? This. She gestured vaguely at the living room, at the kids, at the life they were accidentally building. It's a lot. Too much? No, just different than what I expected. What did you expect? She thought about it. Honestly? I expected you to run. Adrian turned to look at her, and his expression was so open it hurt. Why would I run? Because most people do, when they realize what my life actually looks like. The schedules, the chaos, the pressure. Add 2 kids to the mix, and it's... Victoria. She stopped. I'm not most people. I know that, but... And I have a kid too, remember? I get it. The chaos doesn't scare me. It should. He smiled. Maybe, but it doesn't. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself fall into this without the safety net she'd spent years constructing. But trust didn't come easy anymore, and she'd learned the hard way that people said things they didn't mean all the time. I need to tell you something, Adrian said, and her stomach dropped. Okay. Work's getting complicated. The project I'm on, it's behind schedule. My boss is pissed, and there's talk about layoffs. Victoria exhaled. Not a breakup, just life. How bad is it? Bad enough that I might need to pick up extra shifts, weekends included. Oh. I know we've been doing this every Saturday, and I don't want to mess that up, but, Adrian, it's fine. Work comes first. Does it? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? I mean, yeah, work's important. I need the job, but this... He gestured between them. This matters too. And I don't want you thinking I'm bailing just because things got hard. Victoria felt something crack in her chest. I wouldn't think that. You sure? Because you just said you expected me to run. He had her there. I'm working on it, she said. The trust thing. I know. And I'm not trying to rush you. I need you to know I'm serious about this. About you. About all of it. The words hung in the air between them, too big to take back. Victoria's phone buzzed. Then again. Then a third time in rapid succession. She glanced at the screen and felt her blood pressure spike. Her board chair. At 7 on a Sunday night. I have to take this, she said. Adrian nodded, stepping back to give her space. She walked into her office and closed the door, already bracing for whatever disaster was about to land in her lap. Richard, she said, keeping her voice level, we have a problem. Of course they did. The conversation lasted 20 minutes. By the time she hung up, Victoria had a migraine forming and a crisis that needed handling immediately. One of their major investors was threatening to pull out over a decision Victoria had made 3 months ago. A decision that had been the right call then and was still the right call now, but apparently that didn't matter when millions of dollars were on the line. She sat at her desk, staring at nothing, trying to figure out how to fix this without compromising everything she'd built. A soft knock. Adrian poked his head in. You good? No? He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. What happened? Work. Investors having second thoughts about a deal I closed. If they pull out, it could tank the entire quarter. Can you fix it? I don't know, maybe, but it's going to take time I don't have. Adrian pulled up a chair sitting across from her. What do you need? A miracle. Or a time machine. Fresh out of both. But I'm good at problem solving. Victoria almost smiled. This isn't a construction issue. No, but the principle's the same. Something's broken. You figure out why, then you fix it. It's not that simple. Isn't it? She looked at him, this man who built things with his hands and thought every problem had a solution if you worked hard enough. Part of her wanted to explain just how complicated her world was, how money and power didn't operate on logic, how one wrong move could unravel everything. But another part of her, smaller, quieter, just wanted to believe him. The investor thinks I'm too aggressive, she said, that I take too many risks. Do you? Sometimes. But that's how you grow a company. You can't play it safe forever. So tell them that. I have. They don't care. Then maybe they're not the right investor. Victoria blinked. I can't just... Adrian, this is millions of dollars. I know, but if they don't trust you to run your own company, what's the point? It was such a simple way of looking at it. So simple it almost made sense. Her phone buzzed again. Another email. Another problem. I should deal with this, she said. Yeah, I'll get the kids ready for bed. You don't have to... Victoria. He stood, resting a hand on her shoulder. Let me help. She wanted to argue, wanted to say she could handle it, that she didn't need anyone taking care of her kids while she put out fires. But she was tired, and he was offering, and for once, she let herself accept. Thank you, she said. He squeezed her shoulder once and left. Victoria spent the next 2 hours on calls and emails, trying to salvage a situation that felt like it was slipping through her fingers. By the time she emerged from her office, the house was quiet. All 3 kids were asleep. Adrian was on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "They go down okay?" she asked. Sophie tried to negotiate for 10 more minutes. "Max wanted to know if I'd be here next weekend. Lily asked if you were mad at her." Victoria's chest tightened. Why would she think that? "She heard you on the phone, thought you sounded upset." "I wasn't upset with her. I told her that, but she's 6. Everything feels personal at that age." Victoria sank onto the couch next to him, suddenly exhausted. "I didn't mean to scare her." "You didn't. She's fine. Just wanted to make sure." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the day pressing down on both of them. "I'm sorry," Victoria said. "For what?" "This, the chaos, the work stuff bleeding into everything." Adrian set his phone down, turning to face her. "You think I don't have chaos? Last month, Lily got sent home from school because she bit another kid. Turns out he'd been stealing her snacks for a week, and she finally snapped. I had to leave a job site in the middle of the day to pick her up, then spend an hour convincing the principal she wasn't a menace." Despite everything, Victoria laughed. "She bit him? Drew blood. I was horrified and kind of proud at the same time." "That's terrible." "I know, but my point is, everyone's got chaos. You're not special." She shoved him lightly, and he grinned. "I'm serious," he said. "You think your life is too messy for me to handle, but my life's messy too, and I don't care. I'm here anyway." Victoria felt tears prick at her eyes, which was ridiculous. She didn't cry. Hadn't cried in years, not since the divorce. But something about Adrian saying "I'm here anyway," like it was the simplest thing in the world. It broke something loose. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Do what?" "Let someone in. Trust that they'll stay." Adrian reached over, taking her hand. His palm was rough, calloused from years of physical work. Hers was smooth, soft, the hands of someone who hadn't built anything in a long time. "You don't have to know how," he said. "You just have to try." She looked at him, really looked, and saw someone who meant every word. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? I'll try." He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made her believe things could actually work out. They stayed like that for a while, hands linked, neither of them saying much. Eventually, Adrian checked the time and swore softly. "I should go. Early start tomorrow." "You could stay." The words were out before she could stop them. Adrian's eyebrows went up. "Yeah?" "The couch, I mean. You always stay on the couch." "I know." "So, stay." He studied her face, looking for something. "You sure?" "Yes." "Okay." He settled back into the cushions, pulling the blanket over himself. "Night, Victoria." "Night." She stayed there a moment longer, watching him get comfortable before heading upstairs to her own bed. But sleep didn't come easy. Her brain was stuck on the investor call, on Adrian's words, on the way Lily had asked if she was mad. She kept replaying it all, trying to find the answer that would fix everything. Around 2 in the morning, she gave up and went back downstairs. Adrian was still awake, staring at the ceiling. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "No." She sat on the edge of the couch, and he shifted to make room. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Work, you, whether I'm screwing this up." "You're not." "You don't know that." "I do, actually, because if you were screwing it up, I wouldn't be sitting here at 2 in the morning instead of sleeping." He laughed quietly. "Fair point." Victoria pulled her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. "I talked to my board chair tonight. He thinks I should give the investor what they want, smooth things over." "Do you want to?" "No, because what they want is for me to back down, to play it safe. And I didn't build this company by playing it safe." "Then don't." "It's not that simple." "It is, though. You either do what you believe in, or you don't." She turned to look at him. "You really think it's that black and white?" "I think making it complicated gives you an excuse to second-guess yourself." He wasn't wrong. Victoria had spent years learning to read people, to anticipate their moves, to stay 3 steps ahead. But somewhere along the way, she'd stopped trusting her own instincts. "What if I'm wrong?" she asked. "Then you're wrong. But at least you tried. It was such a simple answer. Too simple. But sitting there in the dark with Adrian, she almost believed it could be enough. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not telling me what to do. For just listening. Anytime." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Eventually, Victoria stood. "I should let you sleep." "Yeah, you too." But before she left, she leaned down and kissed his forehead. Just once. Quickly. Adrian's eyes widened, but he didn't say anything, just smiled. Victoria went back upstairs, her heart pounding, and this time when she climbed into bed, sleep came easier. The next morning, she woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of voices downstairs. When she came into the kitchen, all three kids were at the table, and Adrian was making scrambled eggs that actually looked edible. "Morning," he said. "Morning?" Sophie waved a piece of toast at her. "Adrian says we can go to the park later." "Does he?" "If it's okay with you," Adrian clarified. Victoria poured herself coffee, feeling lighter than she had in days. "Yeah, it's okay with me." They spent the day at the park again, but this time felt different. Less like a trial run, and more like the start of something real. Max and Adrian played soccer until they were both sweating. Sophie and Lily built an elaborate castle in the sandbox. Victoria sat on the bench, answering emails, but every few minutes she'd look up and just watch. At one point, Adrian jogged over, breathless. "Your son's going to be a pro someday." "I know. He's ruthless. He gets that from me." Adrian grinned, dropping onto the bench next to her. "You doing okay?" "Yeah, actually I am." "Good." He didn't ask about work, didn't press her on the investor situation, just sat there, sweaty and happy, like this was exactly where he wanted to be. And for the first time in a long time, Victoria felt the same way. Later that week, the investor called back. They were still pulling out, but Victoria had already lined up two others who believed in her vision. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't smooth. But it worked. She texted Adrian. "You were right," he replied immediately. "About what?" "Doing what I believe in. Told you. Don't get smug. Too late." Victoria smiled at her phone, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Not hope, exactly, but something close. The following Saturday, Adrian showed up with Lily and a duffel bag. "What's that?" Victoria asked. "Extra clothes, toothbrush. Figured it was easier than going home every night." Her heart kicked. "You're staying the weekend?" "If that's okay." It was more than okay. It was terrifying and perfect and exactly what she wanted. "Yeah," she said. "Stay." And he did. The duffel bag stayed. Not just that weekend, but the next one, and the one after that. Adrian's toothbrush ended up in the bathroom. His coffee mug claimed a spot in the cabinet. Lily's stuffed rabbit found a permanent home on the couch, right next to Sophie's sparkle bear. Nobody talked about what it meant. They just lived it. Victoria told herself it was temporary, a trial period, a way to see if the logistics could actually work before anyone got too attached. But 3 months in, she knew that was a lie. They were all already attached, and the logistics were a disaster, but somehow they made it work anyway. Most mornings started with chaos. Adrian left for work at 6, which meant Lily was up at 5:30 demanding breakfast. Sophie refused to wear anything that wasn't purple. Max couldn't find his homework, his cleats, or his patience. Victoria had conference calls starting at 7 and barely enough time to shower, let alone manage 3 kids who'd apparently forgotten how to function. But Adrian helped. He made lunches while Victoria handled emails. He drove Lily to school so Victoria could get Max to soccer practice on time. He didn't complain when Sophie spilled juice on his work boots, or when the house looked like a tornado had gone through it. He just showed up, every single day. It should have been enough. It was enough most of the time. But there were moments, small, cutting moments, when Victoria felt the weight of everything they weren't saying. Like the Tuesday afternoon when she came home early and found Adrian asleep on the couch, still in his work clothes, dirt smudged on his face. He'd been pulling double shifts for 2 weeks straight, trying to make up for the hours he'd lost spending time with her and the kids. She knew he was exhausted, knew the project at work was killing him, but he never said anything. She covered him with a blanket and went to make dinner, feeling guilty in a way she couldn't name. Or the Thursday night when Max asked, casual as anything, "Is Adrian going to live here forever?" Victoria had frozen, spatula in hand, staring at the stove like it held answers. "I don't know, bud." "But he might?" "Maybe. Would that be okay with you?" Max shrugged, which meant yes, but he didn't want to admit it. I guess. Sophie, never one to stay out of a conversation, piped up from the table. I think he should. Then Lily could be here all the time, too. It's not that simple, Soph. Why not? Because life didn't work that way. Because moving in together was a massive step that required conversations Victoria didn't know how to start. Because she was terrified that if she asked for more, Adrian would realize he'd already given too much. But she didn't say any of that, just finished cooking and changed the subject. Adrian came home an hour later, exhausted and covered in dust. Lily ran to him like she hadn't seen him in days instead of hours. He scooped her up, grinning despite the dark circles under his eyes. Rough day? Victoria asked. You could say that. He set Lily down, stretching his back with a wince. We're still behind schedule. Boss is losing his mind. When's the deadline? 2 weeks, which means I'll probably be working nights for a while. Victoria's stomach dropped. How long is a while? However long it takes. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him to quit, to find a job that didn't grind him into dust. But that wasn't fair. He needed this job, needed the income, the stability, the health insurance that covered Lily. She had no right to ask him to walk away from that just because it made their situation harder. Okay, she said instead, we'll figure it out. Adrian looked at her and something shifted in his expression. Yeah, we will. But figuring it out turned out to be harder than either of them expected. The first week of night shifts, Adrian barely slept. He'd leave the house at 4 in the afternoon, work until midnight, come home and crash on the couch for a few hours, then get up to take Lily to school before heading back to the job site. Victoria tried to help, took Lily more often, made sure there was food in the fridge, told him to skip the morning drop-offs and just sleep. He refused. I'm not dumping everything on you, sick, he said, shoving his boots on at 5 in the morning. You're not dumping anything. I'm offering. And I appreciate it. But Lily's my responsibility. She's not a responsibility, Adrian. She's a kid. And you're running yourself into the ground. I'm fine. He wasn't fine. Anyone could see that. But he was also too stubborn to admit it, and Victoria didn't know how to make him stop without sounding like she was trying to control him. So she let it go. Watched him drag himself through each day, getting thinner and quieter, until even the kids noticed. Is Adrian sick? Sophie asked one night. No, honey, just tired. He looked sad. Victoria didn't have an answer for that. Things came to a head on a Saturday morning. Adrian had promised the kids they'd go to the zoo, something they'd been planning for weeks. But when Victoria went to wake him up, he didn't move. Adrian, she shook his shoulder gently. It's 9. We need to leave in an hour. Nothing. Adrian, he stirred, cracking one eye open. What time is it? 9. Shit! He sat up too fast, swayed, and pressed a hand to his forehead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sleep this late. It's fine. You needed it. The kids are downstairs eating breakfast. We have time. But when he stood up, his legs buckled. Victoria caught him before he hit the floor, her heart slamming against her ribs. Okay, that's it. You're not going anywhere. I'm fine. Just stood up too fast. Adrian, you almost passed out. I didn't. You're done. Call in sick. Take the day off. I can't. We're already behind. I don't care. He pulled away from her, frustrated. You don't get it. If I don't finish this project, I lose my job. And if I lose my job, I lose everything. You're going to lose everything anyway if you work yourself to death. I'm not going to... He stopped, rubbing his face. I just need to get through the next week. That's it. Then things will calm down. Victoria wanted to believe him, wanted to think that one more week of this insanity would be enough. But she'd seen this before, with her ex-husband, with colleagues, with herself. The idea that things would calm down was a fantasy. There was always another deadline, another crisis, another reason to keep pushing until you broke. You need to rest, she said quietly. I will, after the zoo. Adrian, I promised them, Victoria. I'm not breaking a promise. And that was the thing that gutted her. He was falling apart, and he still wouldn't let himself disappoint anyone. They went to the zoo. Adrian dragged himself through it, smiling for the kids, pretending he wasn't dead on his feet. Lily held his hand the whole time, chattering about the elephants and the lions and everything in between. Sophie and Max raced ahead, arguing over which animals were cooler. Victoria walked beside Adrian, watching him like he might collapse at any second. He didn't. But by the time they got home, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. Go sleep, Victoria said. I'll handle dinner. For once, he didn't argue, just nodded and disappeared upstairs. Victoria made spaghetti, easy, fast, something the kids would actually eat. They were halfway through dinner when Lily asked, "Where's Dad?" "He's resting." "Is he okay?" "He's fine, sweetheart, just really tired from work." Lily frowned, poking at her noodles. "He's always tired now." Max glanced up from his plate. "Maybe he should quit." "It's not that easy, Max." "Why not? You have money. He doesn't need to work that hard." Victoria set her fork down, choosing her words carefully. "It's not about money. It's about Adrian wanting to take care of himself and Lily. That's important to him." "But if he's tired all the time, what's the point?" It was a kid's logic, blunt and uncomfortably accurate. What was the point of working yourself to death to provide for people you barely had the energy to see? Sophie, oblivious to the tension, reached for more garlic bread. "Can we watch a movie after dinner?" "Sure, Soph." They piled onto the couch after eating, the three kids squished together with a blanket that didn't quite cover all of them. Victoria sat in the chair, half watching the movie, half listening for any sound from upstairs. Around 8, her phone buzzed. "Emma, board meeting moved to Monday. Need you there." Victoria swore under her breath. She'd blocked off Monday to work from home, knowing Adrian would be slammed. Now she'd have to rearrange everything. She texted back, "What time? 10 a.m. Should be quick." It wouldn't be quick. Board meetings never were. She went upstairs to tell Adrian, but when she opened the bedroom door, he was still asleep, curled on his side with one arm tucked under the pillow. He looked younger like this, less worn down. She almost didn't wake him, but she needed to figure out Monday, so she sat on the edge of the bed and touched his shoulder lightly. "Hey." He stirred, blinking at her in the dim light. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I have a meeting Monday morning. Can you do drop-offs?" "Yeah, what time?" 10. So I'd need to leave by 9:30. "I'll handle it." "Are you sure? I know you're working late all next week and—" "Victoria." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "I said I'll handle it. It's fine." But it wasn't fine. She could see it in the set of his jaw, the way his hands clenched briefly before relaxing. He was stretched too thin, and she kept adding more weight. "Maybe I should skip the meeting," she said. "Don't do that." "Adrian, I'm serious. Don't rearrange your life because I'm tired. I'll figure it out." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that it wasn't about rearranging her life, it was about not watching him fall apart. But the look on his face told her he wouldn't hear it. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you." He nodded, already lying back down. "Any time." But as she left the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to break. Monday came too fast. Victoria left the house at 9:30 sharp, guilt gnawing at her the entire drive downtown. The board meeting was worse than she'd expected. 2 hours of arguing over budget allocations and risk assessments, with half the board second-guessing decisions she'd made months ago. By the time she got out, it was almost 1, and she had 6 missed calls from Adrian. Her stomach dropped. She called him back immediately. He answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" His voice was tight. "Just leaving the office. What's wrong?" "Lily's school called. She's sick, threw up in class. They need someone to pick her up now." "I'm on my way." "Victoria, I'm an hour away. I can't leave the site." "I know. I'll get her. It's fine." "It's not fine. I should be there." "Adrian, you can't be in 2 places at once. I'll handle it." There was a pause, heavy and strained. "Okay. Thank you." She drove straight to Lily's school, breaking at least 3 traffic laws on the way. When she got there, Lily was in the nurse's office, pale and miserable, clutching Carrot like her life depended on it. "Hey, sweetheart," Victoria said, crouching down in front of her. "Not feeling good?" Lily shook her head, tears spilling over. "I want my dad." "I know, but he's at work, so you're stuck with me for now. Is that okay?" Lily sniffled, nodding. Victoria signed her out and carried her to the car, buckling her into the back seat. Lily was asleep before they even left the parking lot. Back at the house, Victoria set Lily up on the couch with a bucket, some water, and a blanket. She called Adrian to let him know they were home. "How is she?" he asked immediately. "Asleep. I think it's just a stomach bug." "Did she throw up again?" "Not since we left school." He exhaled, long and shaky. "Okay. I'll be home as soon as I can." Take your time, she's fine. But she could hear the strain in his voice, the guilt eating at him. He wanted to be there, and he couldn't, and it was killing him. Victoria spent the rest of the afternoon working from her laptop while keeping an eye on Lily. Around 4, Lily woke up, groggy and cranky. "How are you feeling?" Victoria asked. "Bad." "Want some crackers?" Lily shook her head. "Water?" Another head shake. "What about a movie?" That got a tiny nod. Victoria put on something animated and colorful, then sat beside Lily, who immediately curled into her side. It was the first time Lily had ever done that, sought comfort from her instead of just tolerating her presence. Victoria froze for a second, unsure what to do. Then she wrapped her arm around the little girl and just held her. Lily fell asleep again, her head resting on Victoria's shoulder, and Victoria stayed perfectly still, afraid to move and break whatever fragile trust had just formed. When Adrian finally came home around 7, he looked wrecked. He dropped his bag by the door and went straight to the couch. "Hey, Lilybug," he said softly, brushing hair off her forehead. "You okay?" Lily stirred, blinking up at him. "Dad?" "Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry I couldn't pick you up." "It's okay. Victoria took care of me." Adrian glanced at Victoria, and the look on his face was so raw it hurt. "Thank you," he said. "Of course." He scooped Lily up, and she wrapped her arms around his neck, holding tight. Victoria watched them, feeling something shift inside her. This wasn't temporary anymore. This was real. Later that night, after Lily was in bed and the house was quiet, Adrian found Victoria in the kitchen. "I need to tell you something," he said. Her heart sank. "Okay. I can't keep doing this." There it was, the thing she'd been waiting for. The moment he realized this was too much and walked away. "I understand," she said, keeping her voice steady even though her chest was caving in. "No, you don't." He stepped closer, taking her hands. "I can't keep pretending this is casual, that we're just figuring things out. I'm in love with you, Victoria, and I want this, all of it. You, the kids, the chaos. I want to wake up here every morning and come home to you every night. But I need to know if you want that too. Because if you don't, I need to know now before I fall any deeper." Victoria stared at him, her brain scrambling to process what he'd just said. "You love me?" she whispered. "Yeah, I do." "For how long?" "I don't know. A while." She felt tears burning behind her eyes, which was ridiculous. She didn't cry. But hearing Adrian say those words, hearing him lay everything out without hesitation or fear, it broke something open in her. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "I know. Everyone I've ever trusted has left. I'm not leaving. You say that now." "Victoria." He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. "I'm not leaving. I don't care how hard this gets. I'm staying, but I need you to believe that, because I can't do this alone." She wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself fall without a safety net, but the fear was so loud, so relentless. "What if it doesn't work?" she asked. "Then we figure it out, together." "What if I screw it up?" "Then we fix it, together." He made it sound so simple, like love was just a choice you kept making, over and over, no matter what. Maybe it was. "I love you too," she said, and the words felt like stepping off a cliff. "I don't know when it happened, but I do. And I want this. I want you here. I want all of it." Adrian smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made her believe everything might actually be okay. He kissed her then, slow and careful, like he was afraid she might disappear. Victoria kissed him back, letting herself feel it fully for the first time. No holding back, no safety nets, just them. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "So we're doing this?" he asked. "Yeah, we're doing this." "Good. Because I already told my landlord I'm not renewing my lease." Victoria's eyes went wide. "You what?" "My lease is up next month. I wasn't going to renew it anyway." "Adrian, I know it's fast, but I'm tired of pretending I don't already live here. And if you're not ready, I can find another place, but..." "Move in," he blinked. "Yeah?" "Yeah, move in. Officially. All of you." "You're sure?" "I'm terrified, but yeah, I'm sure." Adrian laughed, pulling her close. "Okay then." They stood there in the kitchen holding each other, and for the first time in years, Victoria felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Moving in should have been simple. Adrian didn't own much. A decade of single fatherhood had taught him to travel light. But merging two households with 3 kids turned out to be like trying to fit puzzle pieces from different boxes together, and hoping they'd somehow form a picture. The first fight happened over closet space. Victoria had cleared out half of her walk-in closet, which she thought was generous until Adrian opened it and realized half her closet was bigger than his entire bedroom at his old apartment. "This is too much," he said, standing in the doorway with a garbage bag full of clothes. "It's a closet, Adrian. Just use it." "I don't need this much space." "Then don't use all of it. I don't care." But he did care. She could see it in the way he carefully hung up his 5 shirts, leaving 3 feet of empty rod on either side. Like he was afraid to take up too much room, like he was still a guest. Victoria wanted to shake him, wanted to tell him this was his home now, that he didn't need permission to exist in it. But she'd learned over the past few months that Adrian didn't respond well to being told what to feel. He needed to arrive at things on his own. So she left him alone and went downstairs to deal with the second problem, Lily's room. They decided Lily would take the guest room, which was nice in theory, but complicated in practice because Sophie had decided she wanted to share a room with Lily. "Why can't we be roommates?" Sophie asked for the 15th time, sitting cross-legged on Lily's half-unpacked bed. "Because you need your own space," Victoria said, folding tiny shirts that she was pretty sure belonged to a doll, not a person. "But I don't want my own space. I want to be with Lily." Lily, who'd been quietly organizing her stuffed animals by size, looked up. "I don't mind." "See? She doesn't mind." Victoria rubbed her temples. "Sophie, you say that now, but in 2 weeks you're going to be fighting over who gets the top bunk." "We won't fight." "You fight with Max over what color the sky is." "That's different. Max is annoying." From down the hall, Max yelled, "I heard that." "Good," Sophie yelled back. Victoria closed her eyes and counted to 5. This was fine. Everything was fine. People moved in together all the time and survived. Adrian appeared in the doorway, looking frazzled. "Do we have more hangers?" "In the hall closet. Second shelf." "Thanks." He started to leave, then paused. "Are they okay?" Victoria glanced at the 2 girls, who were now staging an elaborate scenario with carrot and sprinkles that involved a tea party and a dragon. "They're great. Sophie wants to move in here." "Is that allowed?" "I don't know. Is it?" They stared at each other, both realizing simultaneously that they were supposed to be making these decisions together now, and neither of them knew how. "We should probably talk about it," Adrian said. "Probably. Later?" "Yeah, later." He nodded and disappeared again, leaving Victoria to wonder when parenting had become something that required committee meetings. By the time evening hit, the house looked like a bomb had gone off. Boxes everywhere, half-empty drawers, random shoes scattered across the hallway. Adrian's work boots sat next to Victoria's designer heels by the front door, which felt symbolic in a way that made her chest tight. They ordered pizza because nobody had the energy to cook. The kids ate in front of the TV while Victoria and Adrian sat at the kitchen island, surrounded by chaos. "This is harder than I thought it'd be," Adrian admitted, picking pepperoni off his slice. "Yeah. I don't know where anything goes." "Me neither, and I've lived here for 6 years." He laughed, tired but genuine. "We're bad at this. Terrible. The kids seem okay, though." Victoria glanced into the living room where all 3 of them were piled on the couch like puppies. "They're resilient, or they just don't care as much as we think they do." "Maybe." They ate in silence for a moment, the kind of quiet that came from being too exhausted to fill it with words. "Can I ask you something?" Adrian said. "Sure." "Are you freaking out?" Victoria considered lying, considered saying everything was fine, that she'd planned for this, that she was completely in control. But she was tired of pretending. "Completely," she admitted. "Yeah? I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for you to realize this was a mistake, for the kids to melt down, for my entire life to implode. And if it does? I don't know. I guess we deal with it." Adrian reached over, taking her hand. "We will. Together." She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that they could handle whatever came next, but belief had never come easy to her, and trust even less. Still, his hand was warm in hers, and that was something. The explosion came 3 days later, and it came from the person Victoria least expected, Max. She'd asked him to clean his room, which was a reasonable request considering you couldn't see the floor anymore. He'd ignored her twice, so she'd gone upstairs to repeat herself, and that's when he'd snapped. "I don't have to listen to you," he shouted, throwing a soccer ball at the wall hard enough to dent it. Victoria froze. "Excuse me? You're not my boss. You can't just bring some random guy here and pretend we're a family." "Max, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want Adrian here. I didn't want Lily here. I want it to be us again." Each word hit like a slap. Victoria had known this was coming, had braced for it even, but hearing it out loud still gutted her. "I know this is hard," she said, keeping her voice level even though her hands were shaking. "But Adrian's not random. He's not Dad." There it was. The thing neither of them had said out loud in 2 years. "No," Victoria agreed quietly. "He's not. So why is he here?" "Because I love him, and because he makes me happy. Doesn't that matter?" Max's face crumpled, and suddenly he wasn't angry anymore. He was just a kid who missed his father and didn't know how to say it. "What if he leaves too?" Max whispered. Victoria's heart broke. She crossed the room and pulled him into a hug, even though he was almost as tall as her now and hated being babied. "He's not going to leave," she said. "You don't know that." "You're right. I don't. But I believe it. And I need you to try to believe it too." Max didn't answer, just buried his face in her shoulder and held on tight. They stayed like that until Adrian appeared in the doorway, hesitant. "Everything okay?" Max pulled away, swiping at his eyes. "I'm fine." "You don't sound fine." "Well, I am." He grabbed his soccer ball and pushed past Adrian, heading downstairs. Adrian looked at Victoria. "What happened?" "He's scared." "Of what?" "That you're going to leave. That this is temporary. That he's going to lose someone else." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I'm not leaving." "I know, but he doesn't." "How do I make him believe that?" "I don't know. Time, maybe. Consistency." Adrian nodded, but she could see the doubt in his eyes. He was second-guessing himself, wondering if moving in had been a mistake. "Hey," Victoria said, stepping closer. "This is normal. Kids push back. It doesn't mean we made the wrong choice." "Doesn't feel normal." "I know, but it is." He wanted to believe her. She could see it. But belief was hard when you were standing in the wreckage of a kid's breakdown, wondering if you'd caused it. That night, Adrian knocked on Max's door. "Can I come in?" Max grunted, which Adrian took as a yes. He found Max on his bed, staring at the ceiling, still holding the soccer ball. "Can we talk?" Adrian asked. "About what?" "About why you're pissed at me." Max sat up, defensive. "I'm not." "Yeah, you are. And that's okay. But I need to know what I did wrong so I can fix it." "You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why are you mad?" Max threw the ball up and caught it, not looking at Adrian. "Because you're here. And that's bad?" "It's confusing." Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, giving Max space. "How so?" "I don't know where I fit anymore. It used to be me and Mom and Sophie. And now it's everyone. And you're with Mom all the time. And Sophie's obsessed with Lily. And I'm just here." Adrian's chest tightened. He'd been so focused on making sure Lily adjusted that he hadn't noticed Max getting lost in the shuffle. "I'm sorry," Adrian said. "I didn't realize you felt that way." "It's fine. It's not fine. And I'm glad you told me." Max finally looked at him. "Yeah?" "Yeah, because now I know, and we can fix it." "How?" "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out together." Max considered this, then asked the question that had clearly been eating at him. "Are you going to leave?" "No." "But what if you and Mom break up?" "Then I'll still be here. Maybe not living here, but I'll still be around. Because you guys matter to me. You're not just your mom's kids, you're you." It was clumsy and awkward, but it was honest, and that seemed to matter more. "Okay," Max said quietly. "Okay?" "Yeah, okay." Adrian stood to leave, then paused. "Hey, Max?" "Yeah?" "You want to play soccer this weekend? Just us?" Max's face lit up for the first time in days. "Really?" "Yeah, if you want." "I want." "Cool. It's a date." Adrian left the room feeling like he'd just cleared the lowest possible bar, but at least he'd cleared it. Downstairs, Victoria was waiting. "How'd it go?" she asked. "I think we're okay, for now." "Good." Adrian collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. "Is it always going to be this hard?" "Probably." "Great." Victoria sat next to him, resting her head on his shoulder. "We'll figure it out." "You keep saying that." "Because I believe it. Even when it's a disaster. Especially then." He kissed the top of her head, and they sat there in the quiet, pretending the boxes stacked in the corner didn't exist. The weeks that followed weren't smooth, but they were better. Adrian took Max to soccer practice every Tuesday and Thursday. Sophie and Lily officially became roommates after a week of negotiation that involved a written contract and a mediator, which was Victoria, because apparently she was a mediator now. Lily started calling Victoria by her first name instead of avoiding her entirely, which felt like progress. But the biggest shift came from the smallest moment. It was a random Wednesday. Victoria was making dinner, spaghetti again because it was easy and the kids didn't complain, when Lily wandered into the kitchen. "Can I help?" she asked. Victoria almost said no out of habit. She wasn't used to help, wasn't used to letting people into her space, her routines, but she caught herself. "Sure, you want to stir the sauce?" Lily climbed onto a stool and took the wooden spoon, concentrating hard like it was the most important job in the world. They worked in silence for a few minutes, just the sound of bubbling sauce and the distant noise of the other kids playing upstairs. "Victoria?" Lily said. "Yeah?" "Are you going to marry my dad?" Victoria nearly dropped the pot. What?" "Sophie says you're going to get married. Is that true?" "We haven't talked about it." "But do you want to?" Victoria looked at this tiny, serious girl with her dark curls and her big questions, and realized she didn't have a scripted answer. "I don't know," Victoria said honestly. "Maybe someday." "Would that make you my mom?" The question hung in the air, heavy and impossible. "I don't know," Victoria said again. "Would you want that?" Lily stirred the sauce, thinking. "I don't really remember my mom. Dad says she left when I was a baby." "I know." "Do you think that's sad?" "A little, but you have your dad, and he loves you a lot." "I know." Lily glanced up. "And I have you now, right?" Victoria's throat tightened. "Yeah, you have me." "Good." And that was it. No big declaration, no dramatic moment, just a kid accepting that her family looked different now, and that was okay. When Adrian came home an hour later, Victoria pulled him aside and told him about the conversation. "She asked if you were going to be her mom," Adrian said, processing. "Yeah." "What did you say?" "That I didn't know. Was that wrong?" "No. That was perfect." He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "You're good at this, you know." "At what?" "Being honest with them, not pretending you have all the answers." "I definitely don't have all the answers." "Nobody does. But you show up anyway. That's what matters." Victoria wanted to argue, to list all the ways she was failing, but Adrian was looking at her like she'd hung the moon, and for once, she let herself believe he might be right. That night, after the kids were in bed, Victoria and Adrian ended up on the back porch with glasses of wine they were too tired to drink. "I've been thinking," Adrian said. "About?" "Us. The future. All of it." Victoria's stomach flipped. "And I don't want to wait." "Wait for what?" He turned to look at her, and his expression was so open it scared her. "I want to marry you." Her breath caught. "Adrian?" "I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out, but I also know I've never been more sure of anything in my life. So when you're ready, if you're ready, I want to marry you." Victoria stared at him, her brain scrambling to keep up. "Are you proposing?" "Not officially. I don't have a ring or anything. I needed you to know." "Know what?" "That I'm all in, completely, and I'm not going anywhere." Tears pricked at Victoria's eyes, which was becoming an annoying habit around Adrian. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Not yet." "But, Victoria," he took her hands, grounding her. "I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm just telling you where I stand, so you know." She nodded, unable to form words around the lump in her throat. They sat there for a long time, hands linked, watching the stars come out. Victoria's mind was racing, cycling through every reason this was too fast, too risky, too much. But underneath all the noise was something quieter, steadier. She wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted all of it. A month later, Victoria went to the doctor for what she thought was stress. She'd been exhausted for weeks, nauseous in the mornings, emotional in a way that felt out of character. She figured it was work, maybe burnout, maybe she needed a vacation. The doctor ran tests and came back with results that made Victoria's entire world tilt. She was pregnant. Victoria sat in her car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. This wasn't possible. She was on birth control. She was careful. She'd already done the baby years and survived them and wasn't planning on going back. But apparently, life had other plans. Her first instinct was panic. How was she supposed to manage 3 kids, a company, and a newborn? How was Adrian going to react? They'd barely gotten settled. They were still figuring out how to be a family with the kids they already had. Her second instinct was to call Emma. "I need you to clear my afternoon," Victoria said when Emma answered. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." "Victoria, you're scaring me. I'm pregnant." Silence. "Emma? I'm here. I'm just... Wow. Okay. Does Adrian know?" "No. I just found out." "Are you okay?" "I don't know." "Do you want to be pregnant?" It was the question Victoria had been avoiding, because the answer was complicated. She hadn't planned this, hadn't wanted it, but now that it was real, she couldn't imagine not wanting it. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I think I do." "Then it's going to be okay." "You don't know that." "I know you, and I know you'll figure it out. You always do." Victoria wanted to believe her, but sitting in that parking lot, alone with the weight of a secret she wasn't ready to share, she felt more uncertain than she had in years. She didn't tell Adrian that night, or the next. She needed time to process, to figure out how she felt before she brought him into it. But keeping secrets from Adrian was harder than she expected. He noticed everything, the way she pushed her coffee away in the mornings, the fact that she went to bed earlier than usual, the moments when she zoned out mid-conversation. "You sure you're okay?" he asked one night after she'd barely touched dinner. "I'm fine. Just tired." "You've been tired a lot lately." "Work's been crazy." He didn't look convinced, but he let it go. Victoria lasted 5 days before the guilt ate her alive. She found him in the garage, fixing something on his truck that probably didn't need fixing. He did that when he was stressed, found things to take apart and put back together. "Can we talk?" she asked. He looked up, immediately concerned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I need to tell you something." Adrian set down his wrench, giving her his full attention. "Okay." Victoria took a breath, trying to find the words. There was no easy way to say it, no perfect script, so she just said it. "I'm pregnant." Adrian's face went blank. Not upset, not happy, just blank. "You're... what?" "Pregnant. About 6 weeks, they think." He stared at her, processing. "How?" "The usual way, I assume." "But you're on..." "I know. Apparently it's not foolproof." Adrian sat down on the edge of his truck bed, looking dazed. "We're having a baby." "Yeah. Together. That's generally how it works." He laughed, sudden and disbelieving. "We're having a baby." Victoria's chest tightened. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." "Are you?" "I don't know either." They looked at each other, two people who'd already survived parenthood once and were about to do it all over again. "This is insane," Adrian said. "Completely. We just moved in together." "I know. We have 3 kids already." "I'm aware." He ran his hands through his hair, overwhelmed. Okay, we can do this." "Can we?" "Yeah, I think so." He stood, crossing to her. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Me too." He pulled her into a hug, and Victoria let herself collapse into him, feeling the weight she'd been carrying alone finally shared. "We're going to be okay," Adrian said, and this time Victoria almost believed him. Telling the kids turned out to be harder than telling Adrian. They'd planned it carefully, waited until everyone was in a good mood, picked a Saturday morning when nobody had anywhere to be, made pancakes that didn't burn. But when they actually sat down at the table with 3 expectant faces staring at them, Victoria's carefully rehearsed speech evaporated. "So," Adrian started, then stopped. "We have something to tell you guys." Max looked up from his plate, immediately suspicious. "Are you getting divorced?" "What? No, we're not even married." "Then what?" Victoria took a breath. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Sophie's eyes went wide. "Like, with a baby?" "Yes, with a baby." "A real one? As opposed to what, a fake one?" Lily tilted her head, processing. "Where do babies come from?" Adrian choked on his coffee. "We'll talk about that later." Max just stared, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. "You're having another kid?" "Yeah," Victoria said, "in about 7 months." "Why?" It was such a simple question, but it hit harder than Victoria expected. Because the truth was, they hadn't planned this, hadn't chosen it. It had just happened, and now they were all supposed to be okay with it. "Because sometimes life doesn't go the way you plan," Victoria said. "But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just different." Max set his fork down, his jaw tight. "So we're not enough? You need another one?" "That's not what this is." "Then what is it? Because it feels like you're replacing us." "Max, nobody's replacing anyone," Adrian said. "This baby doesn't change how we feel about you." "Doesn't it?" Max pushed his chair back. "Everything's already different, and now it's going to be even more different." "Great." He left the table, footsteps heavy on the stairs. Victoria started to follow, but Adrian stopped her. "Let me." She nodded, feeling like she'd just failed a test she didn't know she was taking. Sophie, meanwhile, had moved on from shock to excitement. "Can I name it?" "Probably not, Soph." "Can I at least suggest names?" "Sure." "I think Princess Sparkle is a good name. Or Rainbow. Or, those are all terrible," Lily said. "You're terrible." "Am not." "Are too." Victoria closed her eyes, wondering if this was what the next 7 months were going to look like. Upstairs, Adrian found Max sitting on his bed, staring at the wall. "Can I come in?" "You're already in." Adrian sat on the floor, leaning against the bed. "You want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Fair enough." They sat in silence for a while, the kind that wasn't comfortable but wasn't hostile either. Just 2 people existing in the same space, trying to figure out what came next. "I don't hate the baby," Max said finally. "I didn't think you did. Everything keeps changing, and I can't keep up." Adrian nodded. He got it. Change was exhausting, even when it was good. And for Max, who'd already lost one parent and watched his family reshape itself completely, another shift probably felt like too much. "I know it's a lot," Adrian said. "And I'm not going to tell you it's easy. But we're still here. Your mom and me, and we're not going anywhere." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Max finally looked at him. "What if the baby changes everything?" "It will. Babies do that. But not in the way you think." "How do you know?" "Because I've been through it. When Lily was born, I thought my whole life was over. I was 25, broke, and had no idea what I was doing. And yeah, everything changed, but I wouldn't trade it for anything." Max considered this. "Do you think Mom's scared?" "Terrified." "Really?" "Yeah, she's just better at hiding it than I am." "She's good at that." Adrian smiled. "She is." Max picked at a loose thread on his comforter. "I guess it'll be okay. Eventually?" "Yeah, eventually." It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was something. The next few months unfolded in a blur of doctor appointments, nausea, and logistics. Victoria tried to keep working at her usual pace, but her body had other ideas. By month 4, she was exhausted all the time. By month 5, she couldn't fit into any of her work clothes and had to buy an entirely new wardrobe, which felt like admitting defeat. Adrian, meanwhile, threw himself into preparation mode. He baby-proofed the house even though they had 7 months. He researched car seats and cribs and monitors like he was studying for the bar exam. He read parenting books Victoria didn't even know existed. "You know you've done this before, right?" she said one night, watching him highlight passages in a book about sleep training. "That was 6 years ago. Things have changed." "Babies haven't changed." They still cry and poop and refuse to sleep. Yeah, but now there are apps. Apps aren't going to make a screaming infant stop screaming. Maybe not, but at least I'll have data. Victoria laughed despite herself. Adrian's need to control the uncontrollable was almost endearing. Almost. The kids adapted in their own ways. Sophie appointed herself the baby's official stylist and spent hours drawing outfit ideas that were somehow both adorable and impractical. Lily started reading books about being a big sister, which was sweet until she announced at dinner that the baby would probably cry a lot and nobody would sleep for months. "Thanks for that, Lily," Victoria said. "I'm just being honest." Max stayed quiet most of the time, neither excited nor actively hostile. He helped when asked, ignored the pregnancy when he could, and occasionally asked questions that revealed he was paying more attention than he let on. "Do you know if it's a boy or a girl?" he asked one afternoon out of nowhere. Victoria looked up from her laptop. "Not yet. We find out next week." "Why?" He shrugged. "Just wondering." "Do you have a preference?" "Not really. I guess a brother would be cool, but a sister's fine too." It was the most enthusiasm he'd shown since they'd told him, and Victoria decided not to push it. The ultrasound appointment was scheduled for a Thursday. Adrian took the afternoon off work, which he never did, and they drove to the clinic together in nervous silence. "What if something's wrong?" Victoria asked. "Then we'll deal with it." "What if the baby has 10 fingers and 10 toes but hates us?" "Babies don't hate people, Victoria. You don't know that. Some babies are judgy." Adrian laughed. "You're spiraling." "I'm aware." The ultrasound tech was young and cheerful in a way that made Victoria irrationally annoyed. She squirted cold gel on Victoria's stomach and started moving the wand around, staring at the screen like it held the secrets of the universe. "There's the heartbeat," she said, turning the monitor so they could see. And there it was, a tiny flickering pulse that made Victoria's chest tighten. "Everything looks good," the tech continued. "Baby's measuring right on track. Do you want to know the sex?" Victoria looked at Adrian. They hadn't discussed this. "Yeah," Adrian said. "We want to know." The tech moved the wand, tilting her head. "Looks like you're having a girl." A girl. Victoria felt something crack open inside her. Not bad, just big. Another daughter. Another tiny person who would depend on her, challenge her, maybe even hate her for a few years before figuring out they were on the same team. Adrian squeezed her hand, and when she looked at him, his eyes were wet. "You okay?" she whispered. "Yeah, you?" "Yeah." The tech printed out pictures that looked like abstract art, and they left the clinic in a daze. In the car, Adrian said, "We're having a daughter." "I know. That's 3 girls. And 1 boy. Max is going to be outnumbered." "He's already outnumbered." Victoria laughed, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. "We should tell the kids." "Yeah, let's go." They picked up the kids from school and broke the news in the car, because why wait? "It's a girl!" Sophie shrieked, bouncing in her seat. "I knew it! I'm going to teach her everything!" Lily clapped her hands. "I've never had a sister before." Max, sitting in the front seat, was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Cool." It wasn't much, but coming from Max, it was everything. That night, lying in bed, Victoria rested her hand on her stomach and felt the baby move for the first time. It was subtle, just a flutter, like something brushing against her from the inside. But it was real. "Adrian," she whispered. "Yeah?" She moved. He sat up immediately. "Really?" "Yeah, here." She guided his hand to the spot and they waited. Nothing. "She's probably done for the night," Victoria said. But then it happened again. A tiny kick right under Adrian's palm. His face lit up. "I felt it." "I know." They stayed like that for a while, hands stacked on Victoria's stomach, waiting for the next sign of life. "We're really doing this," Adrian said. "Yeah, we really are." "Are you scared?" "Completely. You?" "Terrified." Victoria smiled in the dark. "Good. At least we're in it together." The pregnancy progressed, and with it came a strange kind of peace. Not the absence of chaos, there was still plenty of that, but the acceptance of it. The understanding that life was messy and complicated and nothing like the plan, and that was okay. Victoria's company had a rough quarter, and she handled it. Adrian's job stayed demanding, and he managed. The kids fought and made up and fought again, the way kids do. And through it all, the baby grew. By month 7, Victoria was huge and uncomfortable and ready to be done. She couldn't sleep, couldn't tie her own shoes, and had heartburn that felt like dying. But she also felt something she hadn't expected, excited. She wanted to meet this kid, wanted to see who she'd be, what she'd look like, whether she'd have Adrian's dark hair or Victoria's stubborn streak. Adrian proposed on a random Tuesday, which was perfect because Victoria hated grand gestures. They were folding laundry, the least romantic activity imaginable, when he said, "Will you marry me?" Victoria dropped the shirt she was holding. "What? Will you marry me?" he repeated, pulling a ring out of his pocket. It was simple, elegant, nothing flashy. Exactly what she would have picked. "You're proposing in the laundry room." "Yeah, is that a problem?" "No, it's perfect." "So is that a yes?" She kissed him instead of answering, which he took as confirmation. They told the kids the next morning, and this time, there were no meltdowns. Just tired acceptance that their family kept getting weirder, and they were okay with it. "Does this mean we get to be in a wedding?" Sophie asked. "If you want." "Can I wear a princess dress?" "Absolutely not." Sophie pouted, but she'd get over it. The baby came on a cold morning in February, 3 weeks early and very much in a hurry. Victoria's water broke at 5 a.m., which was inconvenient but not surprising. Adrian called his mom to come watch the kids, and they made it to the hospital with time to spare. Labor was fast and brutal, and nothing like Victoria remembered. She'd forgotten how much it hurt, how long the hours felt, how many times she threatened to divorce Adrian even though they weren't technically married yet. But when the baby finally arrived, screaming and red and perfect, all of that disappeared. "She's here," the doctor said, placing the tiny, squirming bundle on Victoria's chest. And she was. Red-faced, dark-haired, furious at being evicted from her warm home. Victoria stared at her, overwhelmed by the sheer reality of another human being she was now responsible for keeping alive. "Hi," Victoria whispered. "I'm your mom." The baby stopped crying, just for a second, like she was listening. Adrian leaned over, his hand resting on Victoria's shoulder. "She's beautiful. She looks like an angry potato. The most beautiful angry potato I've ever seen." Victoria laughed, exhausted and delirious and happier than she'd been in a long time. They named her Clara, after nobody in particular, just a name they both liked. The kids met her that afternoon, crowding into the hospital room with wide eyes and nervous energy. Sophie climbed onto the bed immediately. "Can I hold her?" "Carefully." Adrian helped Sophie get settled, then placed Clara in her arms. Sophie stared at the baby like she'd just been handed the most precious thing in the world. "She's so small," Sophie whispered. "You were that small once," Victoria said. "I was never that small." Lily leaned in, peering at Clara's face. "She has a lot of hair." "She does." Max hung back, watching from the doorway. "You want to meet her?" Victoria asked. He shrugged, but he came closer. Adrian handed Clara to him, and Max held her awkwardly, like she might break. "She's lighter than I thought," Max said. "Most babies are." Clara opened her eyes, staring up at Max with the unfocused gaze of a newborn. "Hey," Max said softly. "I'm your brother." And just like that, Victoria felt the last piece click into place. The first month home was a disaster. Clara cried constantly, slept in 20-minute intervals, and refused every bottle they tried. Victoria was a zombie, running on coffee and adrenaline. Adrian wasn't much better, stumbling through his days on 3 hours of sleep. But the older kids helped. Sophie sang to Clara when she cried. Lily read her stories, even though Clara couldn't possibly understand them. Max brought Victoria coffee without being asked and took over bedtime for Sophie and Lily so Adrian and Victoria could focus on the baby. It wasn't perfect. It was loud and chaotic, and nobody had clean clothes. But it was theirs. One night, when Clara was 6 weeks old, Victoria found herself standing in the nursery at 2 in the morning, rocking a screaming baby and wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. Adrian appeared in the doorway, bleary-eyed. "You want me to take her?" "I've got it." "Victoria, you've been up for 4 hours." "I know." He crossed the room and took Clara anyway, swaying gently. The baby quieted almost immediately, which was both a relief and an insult. "She likes you better," Victoria muttered. "She doesn't like anyone right now. She's just tired." "Join the club." Adrian smiled, exhausted. "Go to bed. I'll get her down." Victoria wanted to argue, but she was too tired. She went back to their room and collapsed onto the bed, asleep before her head hit the pillow. When she woke up hours later, the sun was up and the house was quiet. She found Adrian in the kitchen, Clara asleep in the bassinet next to him while he made pancakes. "You let me sleep," Victoria said. "You needed it. What about you?" "I'll survive." She walked over and kissed him, slow and grateful. "Thank you." "For what?" "Everything." He pulled her close, and they stood there in the quiet, two exhausted people who'd somehow built something real. The weeks turned into months. Clara started sleeping longer. Victoria went back to work part-time, then full-time. Adrian got promoted. The kids adjusted. Life settled into a new rhythm, chaotic and imperfect, but stable. They got married on a Saturday in May, 6 months after Clara was born. Nothing fancy, just a ceremony in their backyard with close friends and family. Sophie wore a purple dress that was almost a princess gown. Lily carried the rings. Max walked Victoria down the aisle because he had asked and she couldn't say no. Clara slept through the whole thing, which felt symbolic. When the officiant asked if they took each other, Victoria looked at Adrian and saw everything they'd been through. The coffee shop, the playgrounds, the fights, the fear, the baby screaming at 2 a.m, all of it. "I do," she said. "I do," Adrian echoed. And that was it. No fireworks, no dramatic declarations, just two people choosing each other, over and over, no matter what came next. The reception was loud and messy and perfect. The kids ran wild. Clara woke up and screamed until Sophie sang to her. Adrian's mom cried happy tears. Emma gave a speech that was equal parts touching and embarrassing. At the end of the night, when everyone had gone home and the kids were finally asleep, Victoria and Adrian sat on the back porch with leftover cake and cheap champagne. "We did it," Adrian said. "We did. Think we'll make it?" Victoria looked at him, this man who'd walked into her life when she wasn't looking and refused to leave even when things got hard. This man who made terrible pancakes and loved her kids like they were his. This man who'd given her a family she didn't know she needed. "Yeah," she said, "I think we will." Because the truth was, love wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about having all the answers or knowing what came next. It was about showing up every single day, even when you were tired and scared and had no idea what you were doing. It was about choosing someone over and over, through the chaos and the mess and the moments when everything felt impossible. Victoria had spent years trying to control her life, to keep everything neat and predictable. But the best things, the real things, had come from letting go, from taking risks, from trusting that even when the plan fell apart, she'd find her way. She thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, sitting in that cafe across from a stranger who didn't care about her money or her status. She'd been so afraid then, afraid of being hurt, of being left, of losing control. But Adrian hadn't left. He'd stayed, through every hard conversation and late-night crisis and moment when she'd tried to push him away. And somewhere along the way, she'd stopped being afraid. Not because the fear went away. It didn't. But because she'd learned that fear was just part of it. You could be terrified and still show up. You could be uncertain and still try. That was the thing about family, real family, the kind you built instead of the kind you were born into. It wasn't about perfection, it was about presence, about being there, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Victoria looked at Adrian sitting next to her in the dark and felt something she hadn't felt in years, hope. Not the fragile kind that shattered at the first sign of trouble, but the stubborn kind that held on even when everything else fell apart. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked. "How different everything is." "Good different or bad different?" "Good. Definitely good." He reached over and took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "You know what's crazy?" "What?" "A year ago, I was sleeping on your couch, wondering if you were going to change your mind and kick me out, and now we're married." Victoria smiled. "You were never sleeping on the couch. You always ended up in my bed." Semantics. Important semantics. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that came from knowing someone well enough that words weren't always necessary. Inside, Clara started crying. Then Sophie, woken by her sister, started singing loudly off-key. Then Max yelled at Sophie to be quiet. Then Lily joined in because she never wanted to be left out. Adrian groaned. "Should we?" "Yeah, we should." They went inside together, stepping into the beautiful, exhausting chaos they'd created. And for the first time in a long time, Victoria didn't wish for anything different. This was her life, her family, her home, messy, imperfect, and hers. And that was more than enough.